Hey y'all, I'm Sunny Shell, and tonight we're coming on a new night with some new improvements. But first, tonight's topic is debunking Noah's flood. So let's sit back, buckle up, and get to the sunny spot on Skeptic Haven. Hey everyone, I'm so glad that we could have all of you here. I want to first say thank you to my co-host Bree. She's been awesome since she started, and I couldn't do this without you now because I just love having you on.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
I'd like to thank Bree too. She's been helping me with the Arachnomorph series.
Oh,
it's been awesome. It's been so much fun.
That's so cool.
Yeah, what I like best about it now, I have inside jokes with Aron Ra, so that's we have this. We have a script page that we were working on together, and there's some. I get to hear some of his jokes before you guys even get to see him when he's doing his videos. It's
That's so cool. I'm jelly.
The invitation is kind of like, hey, you want to get with me on writing about creepy prehistoric spiders and other creepy crawly?
Yes. I wanted. Wait, why am I not a part of this? I'm getting a little jealous. Wait, hold on a second. I want to talk about arachnids of the past.
Okay, well, you're going to have to chat with Bree. We've got one more episode to do, and I want it to be stellar. So I'm leaving it. Bree, you're going to have to give me a whole bunch of bullet points on things that I need to cover in this. I mean, just go through the document and make sure to put bullet points. Talk about this, and I'll integrate all that shit in there somewhere.
Did you see that I found the holy freaking grail of what we're looking for as far as the phylogeny? It's going to be awesome. We're going to have such a great video. So
yeah, it'll be a while before I can get to it because for the next week, I'm going to be in Phoenix for American Atheist National Convention.
Woo. Yay! Awesome.
I am so sad I'm not able to make it this year. I'm just bummed out. But
who else is going to be there with you, Aron?
Well, to be perfectly blunt, I've got a couple of my oldest and dearest friends live in the Phoenix area, and so I'm excited to be dragging my old friends from back in the day into an atheist convention. I'm like, you guys are just as heathenistic non-believers as I am. Why don't you know?
Come and join some of your fellow heathens.
That's awesome. Yeah. Aron, I saw that you have a little critter you've added to your family that you weren't anticipating adding to your family.
That I wasn't anticipating.
The rodent?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that one. Yeah.
What a cutie pie. Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you very much. Sadly, I cannot show her at the moment. I would need some assistance to do that, and she's busy with something else. But yeah. We had one snake out of our collection that would not. We've got 36 snakes at the moment, and one of them will not take frozen thawed. So we were feeding him pinkies, and then my wife comes in to bring in. She brings in a fuzzy, which is a baby rat that doesn't have its eyes open yet, and she just couldn't bring herself to present that to this python.
Oh no!
So she went out and bought kitten formula instead, and spent the better part of a week nursing this baby rat on her fingers with kitten formula and oatmeal until its eyes opened, and it's now in the classification of hopper. And it now looks at us and cuddles with us and like, okay.
And you're still classifying it by the feeder class, though. I love it. It was a pinky and a fuzzy, and now it's a hopper. It's still
hopper.
That's so cool.
And then it'll be a skitterer.
Yeah.
The thing is, I have to confess straight up. I mean, rats are better pets than snakes.
Oh yeah,
they really are. They're very, and I don't. When people hate on snakes, okay, I get it. But when you hate on rats, that's unjustified.
Like, how could you?
Rats don't carry rabies. They're amazingly smart. Their genome. The reason that they're so valuable in the medical industry is because their genome matches ours so very closely. Because apes and rodents both belong together in a category called Euarchontogliers, which goes, simians or primates on one side and rodents on the other. And so there are hundreds of codons at a time that are perfect matches between their genome and ours. You can tickle a rat, and although our ears are no longer capable of picking it up, other ultrasonic devices have been able to hear their laughter when you're tickling them.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They giggle.
They do study rabbits for the same reason, because they're Euarchontogliers too. Yeah.
Yep. And so rats can learn their names. They can come when you call them. I mean, they learn tricks. I've had several pet rats before I got into snakes. I had rats, and they are remarkable, especially if you want a low maintenance, quiet pet. You live in an apartment. You want something you can make sure that you can take care of. It's
Brie.
Yeah. the Vanna White of the sunny spot.
I wish I could do that, except I would have to go outdoors and be like, yes, look in my shed, because I have the critters that like to hang out. I have a bat box now. Oh my god, I forgot. I have a bat box now, and
so cool!
Living in it. I know, it's so exciting. At night I can take my little blue light and look at them and just see them just coming in and out, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's so great. There's little southern brown bats, but they're so cool.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Aron, I understand you have a new book.
I am working. Well, I had to change plans because I ran into some copyright issues.
Oh.
I was going to do a book on my reading of Abdel Halim's English translation of the Quran. And it wasn't just Abdel Halim. He was just the primary one, and then I refer to a whole bunch of others. But I talked to publishers about it, and they say, yeah, we can't do that because it's an English translation, which means that the copyright is owned by, you have to go if you find an English translation that was written before 12, I can't remember, then we can use that. And I decided that, and then the controversy on top of it, which was going to be fun for me, I thought, but I mean, it seemed to do Salman Rushdie a good deal.
Yeah.
Because my critique of the Quran is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I'd
say more than one Muslim has probably shed tears. I am not personally, but I can only imagine. I've sat and just watched you just go off. And just sit there, just keep going. I'm enjoying this. Keep going.
It's funny to take this holy book that is so highly praised, and on every verse, read 2 or 3 verses together, and my response is always, "The fuck is this? How does anybody believe this shit? Was this book written by and for incels? What's the?"
Oh yeah, that's always a fun one.
You don't get 72 virgins, by the way. Interesting fact here. The Quran does say you get virgins. Doesn't say you get 72 of them. It doesn't actually mention how many you get, but it's interesting where they come from. Because you go to heaven, and just like with the Mormons, because the Mormons modeled themselves after Muslims quite a bit. Your wives, multiple, go with the man to husbands to heaven. But then they not only have to wait turns after each other, they also have to wait turns behind your sex robots.
Right. Which, by the way, aren't like, you aren't given your preference as to virgin sex. You are given virgins,
but they're virgins. They're women who did not exist on Earth.
Right.
They were created in heaven specifically to sate that man's sexual requests. That's
wow.
it. I really want to meet an asexual Muslim sometime. I would love it.
No, fun fact, in Muslim countries there are no LGBTQ people. It's a mystery why. They just don't exist there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm
You mean
sure.
there's no public knowledge of them?
Exactly.
Wait, are you trying to claim that there's some kind of alternative reason why that they're not?
No, not at all.
No, of course not.
Oh goodness.
Insane is
Well,
that?
we wouldn't want to out anybody, but I've actually met quite a few people in that that live in Muslim countries that are part of this community that don't get to be part of this community in their public life. So
Yeah, we're experiencing a lot of that in Florida and Texas now.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's also not a lot of atheists in Muslim countries, right? Because of the same
As
reason.
soon as you say the word, they
Yeah.
just go to heaven.
Well, another fun fact about that is while what Bree says about the trans people is clearly factual. There are high-ranking people within even Saudi that admit that it doesn't matter how much you criminalize atheism. There's a number of governmental people, higher positions in a number of Muslim countries that are complaining that the atheist movement is still growing even there, despite all prohibitions.
It's almost like you don't really need to argue it for it to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
I know it just blows your mind, doesn't it?
It's just some people will maybe these are not people you can pick out of a crowd quite so easily as you can maybe with trans people, because atheists blend into the crowd a lot easier than most.
You don't have really any physical attributes.
The horns, as long as you cover those up, you're good, right?
Long hair, listening to music.
Yeah, but occasionally at a bus stop or a train stop, some random person will admit, yeah, I just don't believe all this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That takes balls.
So you said that that you had to change course because of the copyright.
Oh
laws.
yeah.
So tell us about your book.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we're working on another one. We did change course. I was talking to the publisher and said, well, if you want to do this other book idea, we could support that. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, we can definitely do that, because that was another thing I wanted to do. Where it's kind of like, this is not the title, but it's kind of like the evolution of Genesis. It's actually answering Genesis.
Ooh.
Obviously the play on answers in Genesis,
Mm-hmm.
where we talk about where did all this stupid bullshit come from.
Well, I am looking forward to getting that book because, as you know, I've already told you this 100 times, but I love your books. I love your foundational. Oh my gosh, my brain did. Yeah, foundational falsehoods of creationism. My brain just stopped for a minute there. I
actually
love
have this book in my collection here. I'm going to have Aron sign it next time I see him. This one that's like right in front of me right now on the screen.
We are apes.
We Are All Apes. It's We Are All Apes book. The one about just the phylogeny, the simple phylogeny breakdown. I'm actually going to do a reading of this at some point for my channel. So look out for that too. And
I like to quote the movie Throw Mama from the Train about that book. It's like, it's a coffee table book.
Right, yeah.
It is your illustrator on this. You made a good choice on picking your illustrator for that book.
I was a little bit frustrated with that because my family always thought that I was going to be an artist my whole life. They didn't know what kind, but I could draw, and so they sent me to art school. I mean, so it was always, or they didn't send me. I went to art school, but it was always thought that I was going to be an artist. I could have been the illustrator for that. I just frankly didn't have the time.
Yeah. Well, you do make art that people see. Your videos are a piece of art. Every single one of them are. And so,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for that. I do enjoy that I get to do the video editing, which a lot of other people like they'll hire out for that kind of thing. I guess they think it's tedious, maybe. I don't know. But for me, it's like painting a picture. It's my favorite part.
Cathartic for me.
The research can be tedious. The composition, because you've got to do all this fact checking. You put something in, because I have put something up, and then somebody corrects me on it. You don't ever want to post a video when it's got something factually false in it. That's
where, yeah, like I may not enjoy the video editing myself, but like, yeah, you can throw me in for research for a lot of stuff, and I will make sure that what comes out is the truth.
And I don't like the recording part, because then you've got to match up all the background effects and everything. You got to make sure you look good. You got to make sure that it's all rehearsed and everything over correctly. All of that nonsense. But once that's all in the can, as they say, and all I got to do is the editing part, where I'm putting in my special effects and doing my color enhancements and all of it. That part I love. It's like painting.
Oh, you do a great
I don't
job.
mean painting a barn. I mean like painting a work of art.
You're making a real life reality within that video, and your reality reflects how you are as an artist.
I hear somebody's dog barking, and it's not mine. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it's mine. Yeah, I didn't hit the mute fast enough. It's just gonna have to go. I'm sorry, but
I don't have anything that barks here. Only hiss. Only things that hiss.
What do you have, Bree?
I got some hissing cockroaches up here. Got a black hole spider. What else? I got a Antilles giant centipede.
She was showing off her baby mantis.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was so cool.
Got 6 different tarantulas right now. That's not the most tarantulas I've ever had by any means. I have a scorpion supposed to be delivered tomorrow, and some of these blacklight reactive millipedes. I've never had a blacklight reactive millipede in my life, so I'm looking forward to
what makes the phosphorescence?
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same chemical composition in the chitin that you see in scorpions. It's generally thought that it's like a fluorescent like visual signal to stimulate so that each other can see, and we can only see that segment when we bring forth the ultraviolet.
With different different eyeballs. The complexity of eyeballs. It's almost like evolution happened. It's
working with Bree on the Arachnomorph series. I've been having to look for visual effects. Of course, you need a certain amount. I need a video of this happening, where I need to find this kind of image. That's the part that takes the longest. Finding images is usually pretty quick, but finding video bits, because now you've got to know where it is before you go looking for it, and sometimes that can take a long time to find video of just what you want. But while looking for these, I happened across this video that says, why do scorpions glow in black light? And the answer, and I saw this on 2 different videos, the answer was, no one knows. Like, I bet Bree knows.
We have a scientific answer, but there is a concept behind the glowing that is mysterious. But we understand the genetics behind it. We understand the baselines. It's more like, why did that evolve?
The leading I said that as a matter of fact, but the leading theory is that it's a visual cue that we just can't see, and that there may be subtle differences in it between different parts of their reproductive cycle that they're in and things like that. Yeah, so there needs to be more research into it, but it's amazing. It makes them easy to find when you're.
How do you research something like this? This is what I find appealing in science. I mean, that you could have a job that pays you to look at scorpions under a black light.
It's more like you write a grant so that you can get the money so that you can look at.
Yeah, and maybe if you could just
because that's. I don't do the scorpions, but I write the grants so that I can look at poop underwater.
So now you need to come up with a hypothesis, and what's going to expand your mind to come up with a hypothesis while you're looking at the scorpions under a black light.
You get really high. You just walk. No, microscopes and weed go together like fucking chocolate and milk. Okay, it's the best thing ever. No, I mean this when you are looking at rocks under a microscope, when you are looking at anything under a microscope, fucking shit it blows your mind. And you know what? I have made some of the most amazing and most detailed notes I've ever written has been while I have been high as a kite looking under a microscope.
Wow, my opinions do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Skeptic Haven. Hell yeah, sister, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
You have to make sure we say that. But I completely agree.
That being said, I haven't done it in a long time, but back in college. That was my hobby.
I run a nonprofit, and all of my staff are very excited because my state is finally taking up the issue of legalizing marijuana. So everyone's super excited, and I'm like, hey, we might just have a pot party.
Asheville has already, like, we already have stores that are not open yet that are waiting to be open.
Yes.
Like,
Isn't
the
it exciting?
crosses are just like sitting around. It's crazy that it's. I mean, I'm all excited about this, and here I am. It's like I don't really smoke that much. I smoke cigars. Aron knows this. I like cigars, but
I too will have the occasional cigar.
Yes, occasional.
When I was trying to advocate for science, that I want to be a scientist, my family always had this ridiculous notion of what scientists do. They were like, somebody got a grant from the U.S. government to study the effects of alcohol on shrimp. What the hell?
Isn't that
you're paid to get shrimp drunk, and that's a job? Okay. And so I have to say, okay, well, look at this video of here's a guy in a scuba suit. He's got the wetsuit, he's got the fins, he's got the tank, everything, except that he's in an ultralight aircraft. He's in one of those little tiny airplanes that doesn't have a body around it. It's just like two folding chairs on a wing.
Yeah, it's a lawnmower that flies.
But he's dressed like that with the swim fins and everything in this ultralight aircraft so that he can then dive off of this thing 15 feet above the water to go swim with a 100-foot blue whale. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a job.
I want to do that.
That's a cool thing to do for a living.
I just have to throw this out here. One of my favorite videos, when YouTube became a thing, one of my favorite videos I ever saw was the different drugs affecting spiders making webs. And I know you guys have to have seen this video because anyone that likes bugs loves this video. And
is this the one that ends up with the pimp spider in the car?
but yeah, I mean, like, there.
I see it, Bree. Thank you for showing that.
That video made me think of my original Bio 209 project, which was giving beta fish various chemicals, not even drugs, just chemicals. Just like, what happens if I give you a bunch of vitamin D for no apparent reason? What happens? Turns out they like to swim in circles a lot, like more so than usual.
So while you bring up beta fish, I just want to say this public service announcement. I know that they sell them in the little bowls, in that section with the little bowls and the little tiny things like that. No, do not put a beta fish in one of those. Despite what you see in pop media, they do actually need space, at least 5 gallons per beta fish, at least.
Well, if anyone ever knows, like if everyone's ever seen those Thai videos of them catching beta fish out of the wild and how they're like hanging out under those, I'm gonna call them lily pads because I don't actually know what aquatic plant that is, but they just kind of hang out underneath there and they just scoop them out of the water, but they're in vast lakes, like not like ponds.
So they like tight spaces, but they want to have a big aquarium with lots of stuff in it for them to hide around and swim around, as opposed to
plastic plants are like it's like flipping off real plants. So get real plants.
Real plants are the best, but depending on your lighting situation.
So for those of you who are tuning in and are like, what's the deal? I thought the topic was debunking Noah's flood. This entire conversation is all debunking Noah's flood, because if Noah's flood were true, we wouldn't even be having these types of discussions. We wouldn't be talking about animals in the ocean and all these really cool things that I don't even know anything about. I just sit here and listen to you guys and kind of geek out over it.
If we do want to jump into that, I have a very easy debunker. And I'm not even going to go into the rock. I'm not going to go into the fossils, not going to go into the whole rocks thing. I can, and I will sometime. But the easiest one is if you take a fish out of a freshwater lake and you stick it in the ocean, is it going to survive?
Nope.
No. Worldwide flood myth. Done.
Isn't the fact that we have freshwater lakes at all debunk the flood?
Yes, because saline is not readily available throughout the world. I mean, it is in the ocean, but the
Every
fact that
lake,
there's terrestrial water that has not touched salt.
every lake, especially the really deep old ones, should have a copious layer of salt on the bottom of them, even if they're
sediment layer. Absolutely, there would be a sediment layer, and there isn't.
I'm amazed at how many farmers believe in Noah's flood. That they believe that the entire world was under like a mile of salt water for a year.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
And you think they would know something about soil horizons and how those wouldn't exist anymore?
Oh no, well, so here's the thing, and I'm only saying this as someone who is actively studying soil. Because that's my jam now. That's the freaking mud.
I study dirt.
I do. I study dirt.
I love soil science. That's yeah.
Like, I am the mud, rocks, and dirt person. Yeah, I had a guy. I was going and collecting just a few soil samples on a guy's property, and he came to me and he's just like, "You won't tell me why I got these amazing fossils up in these mountains here," and like he showed me some trilobites, and I was like, "Those are cool," and he's like, "It's because of the Noah's flood. I know y'all scientists don't believe in it, but I know that the flood happened because this was on my property." Now I have two things to say. One, we were in the Appalachians, the southern Appalachians, where life did not exist when those mountains were built. So the only way that rock had appeared on his property is anthropocentrically, which means
somebody had to bring it
he
down.
had an artifact in his hand.
Oh,
there was definitely some form of Native American Native American site on his property, and I was like, "Could you show me where?" And he did, and lo and behold, I found a few extra things, and the next thing you knew is I was able to preserve a site. But that was, I mean,
that's so cool that you followed that. That's science right there. Even though that guy was like, "Oh no, this is from Noah's flood," you were able to pin it down to a pendant, probably something somebody was wearing around their neck.
So I mean, we weren't able to study it, but because I was able to put down a geographic location. And then send it to the right correspondence to like the state archaeologist and everything, they're able to notarize that area, and they're able to go to the gentleman and say, "Hey, we know you have a site on your property. We know that it's private property, and we're not going to do anything to it, but we would love it if we could pay you to not touch it."
Wow.
That means this acre of land, if you would just like leave it be, we will give you a tax break. And the guy was like, "This might be the best idea I ever heard."
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Like, it's almost like the government actually has some systems that work if you let them.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's.
So I have a many. I mean, there's many different things that we can talk about for what disproves Noah's flood, and I've done videos like on everything I could think of, and including most recently, which I really ought to include this as part of the Noah's flood series, but it's already part of a different series, so I don't know how to do that. But it's criticizing the ark itself.
Oh yeah.
So there have been a handful, like 7 livestock carrying ships that are roughly equivalent to the size of Noah's Ark, and they carry at least as many animals as Noah's Ark was reported to have carried. So Answers in Genesis will talk about 14,000 individual animals, all average size of a sheep, right? So then there's a livestock carrier carrying 14,000 sheep.
Right.
Like, perfect, right? It's a fuck ton bigger than Noah's Ark, but it's carrying the same amount of animals.
Right.
And here's the problem with it. Here's the problem with it. The way that these boats are designed, the ones that are designed to carry livestock, the type of ventilation that they have. Now, remember the Bible talks about how there was one opening of less than a cubit.
Yeah.
That's one opening. And some people have tried to use the excuse that the opening goes all the way around, and maybe, and even if that was the case, that still wouldn't do it.
CO2 falls.
Because all of these ships have where they're like 7-foot diameter columns that are run by powered fans, and there's like 14 of them on each side of the boat to try to keep the air flowing so that things can breathe down there.
Methane. And
Ironically, that sort of construction is what gave scientists and architects the idea of radon emitters or radon mitigators in basements to be able to flush out. Sorry, this is just a random fact. I'll leave it. I'm just like, that's a tangent. Never mind.
No, that's what we love about you, Natty. I love
oh yeah, I know that history.
Like you just have all of these interesting things in your head, and someone says something, you're like, oh, I know about this. I just want to listen to you forever.
The other thing is that is the ship, the way that, because it wasn't a ship, but the way that Answers in Genesis and other kind of apologists try to view this, they put a hull on it, they put a keel on it, and a rudder that doesn't move because there's no way to steer it, because there's no way to propel the thing. No. Right. And according to the Bible, it wasn't a boat. It was a box. It's an ark.
Right.
That means box.
It was a giant coffin.
Exactly. So what happens to all of these livestock ships that like 7 of them went down in the last 10 years? All of it capsized. All of them had the same problem. So they capsize. All the animals are dead. They find sheep swimming out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean until it dies. What are you going to do? What happened to all these ships? Why did they capsize? The engines failed.
Why did the engines fail?
How do you think Noah's Ark? What happens with you? The engine fails, and so the ship is not able to propel itself, which means it's not able to steer itself, which means it's not able to constantly point the bow into the waves. So the waves will end up turning the ship sideways, and then once the ship is turned sideways, the next wave just comes in and rolls it the fuck over. So, how long would that have taken to happen to Noah's box?
So.
And the tumultuous seas of go ahead. I'm sorry, Natty.
No, I talk way too much. You go ahead.
No, I was saying the tumultuous seas of the Noachian flood, when the spring or the great deep, the springs of the great deep, and the windows of the heavens are all pouring down. Everything's tumultuous. It's like a hurricane, and there's no steering this to make sure it stays parallel with the waves. What's going to happen?
Yep. Noah's Ark. Everybody would have died of methane poisoning within 20 minutes, and then the boat would have capsized within an hour.
This is my only argument in favor of a box. And it is, if the box was sealed entirely, then why would it matter if it started rolling? It wouldn't sink.
Because the one window's on the top.
Exactly. And I was like, and there goes the argument. Like,
okay, now real quick.
To prove the flood is to try and argue for it. You'll find your flaws.
Gyroscopic gopher wood. That's the answer.
Real quick, where in the country are each of you?
I moved from the Texas area to the Missouri to North Carolina, so I'm actually right next to Sunny. We're not far off from each other.
North Carolina? You're in North Carolina?
Yep.
Okay. Bree, where are you?
I moved from Missouri to Illinois, so yep.
Okay.
Illinois.
All right.
We need to talk about Missouri sometimes. We bitch about it, okay?
Okay, so I'm still in Texas.
Were you north or south?
North right now.
Oh, I grew up in Branson.
Oh my.
Well, Aron, I have something to
go ahead, Aron.
I have something.
Aron was telling a story. Hold on.
Okay.
He was in the middle of telling a story, and we all cut him off. Go
ahead. I was gonna mention the Guadalupe Mountains here in Texas. You familiar with
yes.
Them? Okay, so this is a national park. It's the highest mountains we have in Texas because we don't have mountains in Texas.
It's actually kind of hysterical.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
I liked going there. Although arguably they are still smaller than Paladuro Canyon peaks, but the peaks happen in the canyon, so it doesn't count.
So. Likewise, and they do have the Franklin Mountains all the way on the west side, barely within Texas at all. And I think the Franklins are actually an extension of the Rocky Mountains, and they're actual mountains, except that
they're an extension of the Sierras, I thought.
It's just the
you could
foothills,
run
isn't
to the
it?
top of it in a day, conceivably. So that's not. It's not mountains the way people in the Rockies know real goddamn mountains. Okay, so but yeah,
But no, go ahead. Back to the Guadalupe.
yeah. So go to Guadalupe, and there's this one peak called El Capitan. And the amusing thing about this is that these aren't real mountains, and I'll explain why in a moment. And the peak is not a mountainous peak. What it is a coral reef. It's a fossil coral reef.
It's beautiful.
And I forget how tall it is, something like 2,000 feet, something ridiculous like that. But
how long
now
does
you
that
have to
take to
remember
form, Aron?
the altitude here in Dallas. I mean, I think we're like 50 feet above sea level.
Austin's like 100, almost 200, if I'm not mistaken. So
I may be confusing it with Houston. Houston is definitely
Houston's
50
only
feet.
like 50. Yeah, Houston barely is above.
Yeah.
So Houston's in the
Houston's
coastal
something.
plain. Yeah.
But Texas in general is just really surprisingly flat.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been a number of times in paleohistory that fossils indicate that the entirety of Texas was underwater when surrounding states were not. So like I've been to the fossil site of a Cretaceous beach where the shoreline was basically the border of Texas and Oklahoma. And so you can tell it's a shoreline because there's suddenly thousands and thousands and thousands of ammonites.
Oh, wow.
Just piled up. And then you have all of this sediment built up on top of the
waters and tide pools, man. They're
yeah. So there's the Red River that divides Texas from Oklahoma cuts through and reveals this coastline of thousands of trilobites, and it makes kind of like a road cobblestoned with trilobite shells, which is kind of a neat experience. But we know that the entirety of Texas has been underwater a number of times. And so you look at this coral reef. And I think the coral reef is Permian, if I remember correctly. I mean, it's not Cretaceous. It's way old.
I don't think it's Permian.
Capitan?
Well, you got no, you're right. The Permian Basin is older than this.
I want to say it's Devonian, but I could be wrong.
No. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
I'll just check for a second. Don't worry. Keep going with the story.
Well, anyway, it's not Cretaceous. Most people think about being Texas underwater, and Texas was underwater at that point. But this formation happened before that. Okay, so in Permian it may be. But the thing is, when you look at this 2,000-foot thing, everything we know about the way coral forms, how long it takes for coral to form, and that coral has to form close to the water surface, right? So I mean, and so when the water rises, the coral grows with it, and if the water drops and now the coral is up, now the coral's dead. Well, here we have a coral formation that grew and grew and grew and grew until it's however many, 2 kilometers high or whatever it is.
It's young Permian.
Okay, thank you. Young Permian. Didn't I say Permian in the beginning? I did say Permian.
Would that be
Permian? Yes, you're correct. Points.
Mississippian.
But the point is,
whiteboard over here. Hold on. Let me just add it.
The point is, the type of conditions required for coral to grow, the fastest rate possible for coral to grow, requires pristine, calm, sunlight conditions. We are not talking about a Noachian flood. We're not talking about debris in the water. We're not talking about what would be a period of a few months tops with the water at that level, right? Weeks, actually. Something of the water level was here for a long damn time.
Mm-hmm.
And let me clarify what Aron's talking about here, because this is not the Western Interior Seaway that he's mentioning.
No.
This is before when the continents were not even close to where they are now. So you have this layer with this coral reef, and in Texas, and in the geologic layer above that, we have the Western Interior Seaway on top of that as well, with the fauna that live there in Texas, at least in northern Texas. I don't know about down where you're in the exact area where you're talking about.
Yeah, that was a valid point. That was the whole reason that I meant to point out that difference that Bree just pointed out. Thank you, Bree, because I mean, when I said that it was not Cretaceous like most people think, because most people that know anything about this think about the Western Interior Seaway, but this was not that. This was a whole nother thing.
Way
This
before,
was when
like
Texas was physically lower. So it's like people will think that the sea levels are the only thing that rise and fall. No, the land does too. And
so this was when we had Panthalassa. This. I don't know if you can see this. It's not Pangea precisely, but it is. Texas was in what was known as Panthalassa, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Anyway, it was at a low point. It was literally in like a barrel, a basin of landscape.
So what you've got is a situation where
too much more on them.
to build a coral reef this high, you have to have the water level right where you can see it. When you're standing there looking at El Capitan, you've got to realize that it was that much water. That was where the surface was, where the top of this peak is. That's as high as the water could have been. And that had to have been there for at least minimum 100,000 years. Minimum. At the absolute fastest that coral can grow, that's still 100,000 years there. There is no explanation for the Noachian flood that can even permit El Capitan to exist.
I'm really, really trying not to run into the other room and grab rocks right now.
Is that
because I may or may not have a sample.
Was that Laurasia?
2 million years in corals.
Was that the whole Eurasian plate? Was that before? It's getting pushed up by the Pacific plate. It's been pushed up since then, right?
So at this point, there was a kind of a triangle thing going on. So there were 3 plates. There was the Eurasian plate, and then the Pacific plate, and then there was like what was or what will become the Indian plate, all kind of correlating, but shifting almost like in
rotating.
Well, I guess if the screen, it's actually shifting this way. But as it was shifting this way, it was making a crazy basin that actually had a little bit of a high preventative line, almost like you would say well, you know how like there's areas where you can't surf because there's a reef barrier? Well, this is one of those that was protecting the water flow from letting those corals just grow beautifully and uninhibited, and it's just gorgeous. And it's right after Pangea, but not before Gondwana land, and we're just like getting all happy around here.
Yeah, well,
I went
Permian. Yeah,
I was very lucky that I was invited to do a paleontological expedition in South Africa, which was all Permian, late Permian, terrestrial, and I was so excited about that. And that was a really great trip for me. It damn near killed me. It showed me what a wuss I really am. It's surprising how tough you're not when they drop you off someplace at 8 o'clock in the morning in the desert, and they say, "Well, we'll pick you up at 5:30."
Oh, I remember these stories. I remember talking to you about these. Like, yeah, I understand those.
And you're just wandering around the desert in Africa.
Did you bring enough water? Too bad. It's like, oh well, I guess we just gotta go sit under this one tree over here.
Because you know what happens if you don't bring enough water with you when you first arrive? Your bones will bleach in the sun.
Yeah, we have. I mean, that is one of my favorite things to do. Is like we'll tell the new recruits, drink water, bring water, have more than one water bottle, and they'll be like, no, it's fine, and they'll just get one of those like 2-liter just normal jugs. And that'll be all they'll bring. And I'm just like, I don't think you guys realize when I say bring water, like your backpack should be like 50 pounds of water.
I learned after the first day, I mean, I had like a 2-liter bottle with me, and that wasn't enough. We were out for a half a day, just a short trip.
And it was
going. And I was surprised how quick I ran out. It's another thing when they start you off of the day, 8 o'clock in the morning, in this environment, it feels nice. It's gosh, I love this. This is all great. We're all hunky dory, but by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you're done. All the energy is gone.
I'm going to tell you, there's a reason why a lot of times archaeologists will opt for starting at 4 a.m. is because they get done at like 3 or 4 p.m. That way they can just drink afterwards. They're just like, we show up at the bars early, we get used to the bartender just keeps giving us drinks, we go home, we pass out, we wake up at 4 and we do it all again.
My thought was when I came home from that expedition, I said, I'm going to be doing this again. And I want to do this like more, as many times as I can. I want to go on expeditions, and it doesn't have to be another place. I prefer the Permian. It's my favorite period. But I was thinking about the Guadalupe Mountains and the Permian basins, and I know it's early Permian, most of the exposure there. So I mean, the best you're going to find is a Dimetrodon, Tetraceratops, something like that.
Everything's going to be microscopic.
And a hell of a lot of it is marine, but I'd still be tripping out if I could find a trilobite,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I thought that I was going to be in that kind of environment. So I went out and bought this vehicle that would handle that. So I bought this Jeep on 37-inch off-road tires because I'm expecting to go on trips like this. So far, I've only been able to take it out one time. I went to and it was for Eocene, which was not what I was looking for at all, but okay. It was in the Badlands of Wyoming. And so spend a couple weeks out there was the invitation, and that was pretty nice. At least, I mean, not nice. It was arduous. It's rugged. You're an hour's drive away from pavement.
Yeah.
That is so
I was like,
cool,
he's describing all of 2014 and 2015 for me right now. I'm just like, yes, when I worked in Montana, North Dakota, and Wyoming. Yes, I remember these days.
I'm kind of proud of my wife because the one trip that I was invited to come on, that I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years since I got back from South Africa, and when they offered to do this trip, hey, would you like to come out and do this thing in Wyoming? Well, yeah, absolutely. When are we going to do this? And the date happened to be my 13th wedding anniversary.
Oh.
Aw.
And my wife consented that we will spend our 13th wedding anniversary in the Badlands of Wyoming, shitting in a bucket.
I remember.
Hey, that's just a weekend here in
That's the
mountains
most
of North
romantic
Carolina.
thing I've ever heard.
I mean, honestly, like I couldn't ask for like a better couple situation like that.
I would swoon for that offer. I would.
I will.
One of my favorite pictures of her and I is in the Badlands. We're on our wedding, on our anniversary day, and we're in an absolute wasteland, and she's leaning up against my chest and everything, and the wind is just ripping through both of us because Wyoming.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Okay, I have got to show you a question from the audience. How do we know the Grand Canyon was not the flood?
One, because there was never a flood. Two, we have all of these different stratigraphic layers that exist everywhere in the world. They're not always exposed everywhere in the world, but there are some places where there's like a couple of dozen different places where the entire geologic column exists. But because all of it exists, that means that the recent stuff is on top of the older stuff, and the only way you're going to see the older stuff is if you drill a core to get all of it. Now, sometimes you've always got deposition and erosion happening all the time, and it's just in a balance of how much is happening at any given time. So there are very few places where you would have deposition has happened predominantly all the time, so that all the layers are there. In a lot of other places, erosion has taken over and so is exposed different areas or whatever. And so when you find Permian strata in Texas or South Africa or in Russia, it's going to match radiometrically, and it's going to match, the biostratigraphy is going to match as well. So you're going to have trilobites appearing in the marine deposits in all these areas.
Yeah.
So
ecology will match all of it. Paleoecology will match.
Yep. So there's multiple methods of bringing this all together. All links together to give us our.
I'm going to say my favorite
model.
word. I'm going to say my favorite word: floating time charts. Floating time charts. I will use all of the things to correspond all of the time events all of the time, so that they all layer each other up. And like you're missing one. Well, this one has it. Oh, look, it fits.
It's like a puzzle.
That's how it works.
Before we get too far into more questions, I just want to say thank you to our patrons real quick. So everybody out there that's watching now, of course, thank you as well. But a special thanks to our patrons, which the first one on the list is our hostess here, this Sunny Shell, Cindy Plaza, Phil Calderone, Kathy Cotton, Deborah Grace, Aaron Coalson, Michael Wiseman, Dan D, and Deneen Murphy, and Tara S. Thank you all so much for contributing and helping to make Skeptic Haven a thing.
Yeah. I wish we had a track with like people clapping and saying woohoo. That would be so awesome right there, because we couldn't do it without our patrons.
What were you just talking about biostratigraphy?
Sorry, I gave up. I had to go get rocks.
So you go to South Africa, and the strata that you're working in somewhere in the Karoo is dated to 263 million years old, according to a host of different radioisotopes. And then there's a place in Russia where the exposure measures the same age. And what a fucking surprise that you find scutosaurs, or you find not scutosaurs. Scutosaurs are only in Russia, but you find help me out here.
Forams, foraminifera. If you find foraminifera.
No. It's scutosaur is a subset of the larger category of anapsids. The
I don't remember the
pariasaurs. Okay. Pariasaurs. So you find pariasaurs in South Africa. You find pariasaurs in Russia. They existed at the same time in both places. Mm-hmm. They were kind of globe because everything was the globe was kind of all one continent at one point. So I mean, at this point, so the same animals migrated to both places. And so you have back in that period, you don't find dinosaurs, you don't find mammals, but if you're at 263 million year old strata here or there, you find pariasaurs in both places, different species thereof, but in both places you find the same type of thing. And that's just another important thing to bring up about that.
And you can do that with mammal history too, with like how we find marsupials dominant in Gondwanaland, and then Gondwanaland broke up into South America and Australia, New Zealand and Oceania, and then we have pocket populations of marsupials and monotremes, and these what we call more basal mammal forms that were more successful down there, where there were less successful placental mammals. And then you get just one more thing. Then you get the isolation of the Afrotheres and at a later date, and then you get the isolation of the Xenarthrans. From that, it is this really weird way that you can see how these
do you really think anybody in your audience knows what a Xenarthran is?
In my audience is brilliant, but I don't know about Skeptic Haven's art. Xenarthrans are sloths, armadillos, and
the South American alternative to the Afrotherians.
Yeah, which are
so in Atlanta you have Boreoeutheria, which is us, and a number of other familiar things. And then at Atlanta Janata, just to help out those that maybe just tuned in late, in Atlanta Janata you have two subsets, and there's Xenarthrans and Afrotherians, and the Afrotherians are the aardvarks and the
elephants, dugongs, manatees.
Exactly, shrews, and then the Xenarthra. Well, those are Afrotherian, meaning African. And the Xenarthrans, meaning basically South American. So the anteater, the armadillo, and the sloths, and that sort of thing.
Well,
I just wanted to sound smart for a moment, but
I just wanted to throw it out there. I don't remember half of my family order class names.
Yeah.
I swapped out of that and learned all the rock names. So unfortunately, I had to categorize my library in my brain. But yeah, we have a super chat.
Yes, we have from Aaron Coalson, $10. Thank you, Aaron. Voting is very important to support the sciences. Be sure to vote for pro-science candidates, or it will be an indictment against you. Sorry, Wes had to. Thank you very much. I completely agree with that.
I approve of anybody using the word indictment today.
Yeah, absolutely. Per block.
Yeah. So I want to get to the trilobite. Give me just a second. I got to touch on what they were talking about, because they were talking about floating time charts. And they were using geographic fucking, what is like taxa examples for timelines. But you can go even further with that. You can use those radioisotopes found within the bones of those different taxa to prove that they are of the same age. You can use it to find ones that are of different ages, showing that there's some that like branched beyond like there are some people that there are some dinosaurs that went from the Jurassic into the Triassic, and you can prove it because you can find different ages of their particular bones radioactively. Their radioactive decay tells the same thing. And then I'm going to give my list again. Tree rings are one of my favorite things, both petrified and living. Those tree rings can give you environmental facts for like what's happening now versus in the past as far as climate. Radioactive isotopes of ice cores, specifically oxygen, delta 16 and delta 18. They tell you about temperature changes up and down. Same thing with the argon and is it calcium? Argon and I think it's calcium dating on stalagmites throughout the world. The I'm missing enamel of teeth via paleo creatures, which Forrest Valkai, a close friend of mine, is actively studying right now, which he's really cool. You can do it with foraminifera, which are a thin invertebrate that float around in the little shallow seas, and they like to make layers like we've talked about where the salts should be, and you can correspond and float and overlap all of those, and they will show you the exact same pattern in order to like go through. Like, I mean, it's just over and over and over and over. It will tell you the same deals. Like it's cool. Okay, trilobites. I think Aron has been introduced to my trilobite before. This is Gregory. This is my 3D printed trilobite because I wanted a big one.
That's what she said.
Oh.
But yeah, this is Gregory. He is a trilobite. I would have to go digging through boxes to find my entire collection of trilobite fossils. But isn't he cute? Yeah. How old is this one? Well, technically he's only 3. But
can you take a quick second to explain?
Go for it.
The tri and trilobites, what that means, because I get lots of people get it wrong.
Oh
what the reason behind it is.
It.
Okay, so the trilobite, the body is segmented actually in. Oh, there you go. It's segmented in 3. Your 3D model doesn't display it very good.
It doesn't, unfortunately. I don't have. I could go digging.
No, you're fine. They're divided long way, not.
There's
It's often thought that they're divided between the head part of the carapace and then the telson part and then the midsection, but it's not. It's actually the center ridge and then the two side lobes.
Which have those awesome Hox genes that me and Aron did the first video about when we talked about trilobites. So go check that out too.
Yeah, there was somebody else that wrote it. Skeptic Haven, I saw through a question in there. It says, in what ways do we see that biodiversity disproves the Noah's flood story? Let's think about what Noah had on his ark, right? So we're sometimes told that Noah had dinosaurs on his ark, and if you go to the Ark Encounter, in
near
Kentucky,
us, Sonny. We should go. Sonny.
It's funny.
Yes.
I will give full credit to the paleo artists. They don't call themselves paleo artists, of course, because they're believers. But they did some really surprisingly fine renderings, and I liked how they did Pakicetus, for example. I thought beautiful. There was a beautiful rendering of Pakicetus, but they don't have any appreciation for my appreciation for their art. So did the Noah's Ark have, if they had dogs, what kind of dogs did they have? Because, I mean, everything is supposed to have, all the different kinds of dogs we have today are all supposed to have been derived from what was on the Ark, right? So was it one pair of dogs that produced the South American bush dog and the African painted dog and the Asiatic gray wolf and
And there's
or
the
the North
bone
American
crushing
gray wolf.
dogs that we don't even have anymore at all.
Oh,
Yeah,
genetic.
Hesperocyon and the Borophagines and so forth. I mean, Epicyon, for example, were all of those
Epicyon.
were just from the pair of dogs on the ark, or was there not a pair of dogs on the ark? If there was a pair of dogs on the ark, you realize it would have been Hesperocyon.
And what about bear? Were there bear dogs? Were there dog bears?
Exactly.
I like both of them, and I want to believe both of them made it. Also, can we make a note as to where the ark was built versus having a bear dog or a dog bear in that area?
Oh, since they're strictly North American and the ark was built in Turkey.
Weird. I want to throw that out there. Also,
Hope that dog could swim.
All right,
Swim better than the sheep.
here's a really great question from Cosmic Kyle, who also gave us a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. Wouldn't the energy being pumped into the earth as a system by the water cause the atmosphere to combust?
Very close. Yeah. In the first episode of my Exposing the Ark series was based on a study by physicists who took it upon themselves to write what was not popular in science. Let's debunk a Bible myth as part of peer-reviewed science. And scientists aren't going to take it seriously, but it might be worth something to somebody. It was certainly worth something to me when they're talking about, if you want to have this volume of water come through the atmosphere in this amount of time, what's the temperature going to be as a result of that? So yeah, and the other stories that they like to come up with about that, the hydroplate theory, the notion that most of the water in the earth is actually under the Earth's core, or not core, but under the mantle, and so that there's cracks in the mantle, so that all these oceans worth of water shoot up, and they're all superheated, mind you.
No,
superheated steam shoots out of every orifice on the planet to then rain down, which they decided that superheated steam would cause an ice age that would instantly freeze mammoths.
Standing up with food in their mouth. Yeah.
Side note of the mammoth. Did anybody see the meatball?
The meatball.
What?
No one's seen the meatball? No one knows about the meatball? Oh my God.
No.
Oh, I'm a little heartbroken. Okay, so every now and then during an expedition where they find a mammoth or something of mammalian genetics from the Paleo era that has been frozen for a long enough amount of time that the meat is still technically viable, they will take
edible.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
not
I've seen
viable,
people
edible. Yes. They will take it, mince it, and have a lovely scientific dinner. And there was a meatball unveiled recently, I believe in Russia. I'm not entirely sure, but I had it all over my Facebook page, and there's like, why are we eating the mammoth? Why aren't we studying the mammoth? I'm like, it's fucking meat is gonna go bad. I mean, I want a piece of the meatball. Can I have the meatball?
Eating the mammoth is studying the mammoth.
It is. We are now knowing what Neanderthal might have eaten.
Our ancestors benefited from the meat of those animals too. So why were they so delicious that we ate them
I have
all?
a right to that meat, just like everybody else on this earth.
Mammoths had to have been really, really delicious because there's no more left. We didn't leave any leftovers, and we're cleaning out.
That's what I'm thinking. I want to know what mammoth tastes like with scorpion pepper.
Oh,
I do not. You can have my scorpion pepper.
Aron and I still have to do the spice challenge sometime. Like I want to go back and forth and do the pepper challenge with them.
My wife and I just came back today. We went to one of our favorite places that make the hottest food you can get in Texas.
Oh, nice.
The hottest food I've ever had in this country. And they gave us a wing that the chef, who knows me very well, gave me this, and he says that the rest of the restaurant says that the chef doesn't think it's hot. The rest of the restaurant thinks it's hot. So they gave my wife and I one wing.
This one.
Covered in sauce and dusted with powder. And we were both choking and crying by the end of that one wing.
But it was fun.
Oh my God.
My wife and I agreed that it really was like eating a mouthful of angry bees.
No.
Wow. Well, okay, so here's the deal. if mammoths were so tasty, why aren't elephants?
The
I
seals and the
suspect that part of
flavor.
the thing with mammoths is that there weren't a lot of anything else
I think so.
that would feed the whole camp.
I think it's a speed thing because even giant sloths are faster than mammoths at some point in time. Like mammoths.
There was also a lot of mammoths.
Go very far.
There were a lot of mammoths, and if you bring down one, you feed everybody.
For a
And
while.
it just might have been that Paleolithic man was like the Britons. They would consent to eat blood pudding and completely unseasoned shepherd's pie.
You couldn't be picky, right?
That's fair. There's a lot of discussion as to whether or not we actually hunted the mammoths to extinction or if there was some natural disease. I mean, I think there was up to 5 different hypotheses that kind of get thrown around a bunch. 2 of them get thrown out pretty fast because
and they could all be true at the same time.
And yeah, that's
in different areas too. Because
I hate that people think that just because one hypothesis is proven right means another one is wrong. It's not true. That's not how that works. Just because one is proven right, that means that the one is proven right.
Climate change, disease, Anthropocene extirpation. There's all working together against the megafauna.
Let's also talk about the cometary impact at the end of the what is it? The Younger Dryas. They confirmed there was a cometary impact in Canada.
Right, which is one of the things they're like, oh yeah, this is why the megafauna went out. It's like, no, it's not why. Could have resulted in some issues though.
Yeah, well, it could be a contributing factor.
Could be a contributing factor. There's that ashfall. Well, I mean that's Nebraska. That's they say that it's due to a volcano, but we're pretty sure it has something to do with the comet, not so much the volcano. But there's ashfall in Nebraska.
Are they really equating the ashfall in Nebraska with the cometary impact?
That it might be corresponding. Yeah, there's some discussion as to a correspondence between the two.
That's interesting.
I know, right? With all that whole rhino herd that went down and like everybody, just like that's interesting. I thought it was just because of the volcano, but they're like, no, the comet and the volcano happened close enough together that they might be corresponding to each other. And I was like, oh,
Nattiegnat, I got a question for you.
Unusual. What?
I've been wanting to do a video on how we date the age of the Earth, and not just by radiometric isotope, radioisotope.
Yes.
Because people want to come up. Well, you're assuming the half-life, or you're assuming the parent and daughter. There's a whole bunch of different ways, and you just listed some of them. I'm wondering if you maybe have access to the full list. There's a whole bunch of different ways without ever looking at radioisotopes of how we can date the Earth.
Well,
she just listed a whole bunch of them.
That's what I said. It inspired me. I've been wanting to do this video for a while.
I love it. I love that idea, and I do have I have a decent list. I would have to holler at a few of my astronomy people because they have the full list. But I think my favorite one is just seeing how constellations have changed and moved. We still have the same names for certain constellations that happened a while back, but because of the rate of change between certain constellations and based off of simply the size of the star, because back in the day everyone thought the stars were all the same size. Based off that, we're going back to Galileo, farther back, beyond Pythagoras. But when you observe paintings done by the Renaissance versus now, and you see certain constellations, you're like, that star is kind of out of place. That's weird. Well, in the last 200 years, it's shifted from here to here. Well, you can just measure the shift based off of how we're moving in the universe versus how everything's expanding and be like, oh, wow, if that's how fast it's moving, then technically we could measure the age of our Earth or the origin of our planet to a certain point in time in space, which is another way you can age things, is by corresponding its location within the cosmic strata. The cottage piece.
There's the
Oh
baby.
my God,
there it is.
baby!
Part of the show.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody freak out!
So
That's the cute little baby!
Your eyes are open.
Oh my God, I love it so much!
Oh
have a
my
That's so
gosh.
soft, I bet.
Her name
So
is
soft.
Chibi.
Chibi.
Yeah, which is,
Oh.
as I understand it, I think it's Japanese for small or little thing.
Oh, little thing, Chibi.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
And she's adorbs.
Oh my gosh, so cute.
She likes when she gets a chance to come out and be held. She just snuggles up.
Oh.
Is
And
she eating
cuddles
solid
her
food
away.
now? She eating like seeds and stuff?
Yeah.
I say, it looks like her teeth are pretty well developed.
Yeah, she also makes that noise. I do this little kissy thing with her, and she makes the noise back at me.
Oh.
I'm sure she's making all kinds of noises you can't even hear, Aron.
Yeah.
The snakes
my-
probably can, though.
Yeah.
So yeah, like my favorite one is as far as radiocarbon dating and not doing radiocarbon dating or radio decays. My favorites are just looking up. When you look up, that's the way you can measure everything where you are.
I want to counter. Look down.
Oh yeah, no, I'm a geologist. I look down all the time.
No,
But
the soil, because soil can't even exist on a young Earth.
Okay,
The composition of soil could.
you're gonna get me into this.
Oh, yes, I want to
You're
get
gonna
you
get
into
me.
this.
You're gonna get me started. Oh boy! Did you know there are rocks that we find to this day that cannot exist unless the Earth had been a molten mass? Did you know that? Like, let's throw this around. Okay, so first off, like living in the Appalachians, it's still mind blowing to me that I can't find fossils here. Like it just blows my mind.
Because she's from Missouri. Where are they?
Right, because limestone and fucking shells everywhere.
Have you ever been to Elephant Rock? South.
that
Okay,
was
okay.
one of my favorite places.
My dad used to tell me that dinosaurs were bullshit.
That was it. That's like the whole.
Yeah,
statement.
he lived in a lot of fossiliferous places, but when I first developed the ability to show him that fossils are a real thing, sadly he lived in Colorado in an area that was not fossiliferous at all. And there's just there's no deposition. This is just all metamorphic or whatever. So there's
he well, arguably
The metamorphic rock's what she was talking about, though.
I was going to say, we can get into some really interesting metamorphism that talks about the age of the Earth.
Well, hold up. We have something from Randolph Richardson who says, question for the panel. Is Aron Ra going to demonstrate carnivorous mouse
Dating.
Carnivorous
dating?
mouse
There we go. I couldn't
That's
see
a
the rest of it.
No. He's not going to eat his rat. No.
He's not going to date it either.
we don't come up with reality.
So
Oh,
cute,
No,
though.
so with metamorphism, and the fact that these rocks that have to have been formed during a time pre-land, I don't know how to explain that any better than like there was
Pre-terrestrial
no-
organisms.
Well, no, I'm talking even farther back. Like
Oh,
it's not just-
okay.
yeah,
it's not
she's
just
talking.
language
What is it?
floating.
Hadean?
Hadean, okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
we're going pre-Hadean. Like we're going way back to the point when
So
Earth was
pre-Thea.
yeah, now we're
Okay.
talking. When Earth was still getting
That's if we could put an absolute date on the age of the Earth, my preference would be for the moment that Thea hit.
Yeah, because it
I
wasn't
think
the Earth
that-
before that. Like,
Well,
there was at least...
I mean, yeah, I could go with that.
Thea made a significant contribution to the composition of
I
the
mean,
Earth. I
the
think.
moon was a thing. Like,
Yeah.
there's a whole chunk there.
Are
that-
there any elements that are on the Earth that we know that were only from the Thea collision and we
No,
didn't have them on the
you
Earth?
have kind of the same elements everywhere. I mean, iridium is really rare on Earth. It's more often found in why that is, I don't know. But I mean, the same stuff exists pretty much everywhere,
Look that up.
except for californium, which only exists in California, and technetium, which only exists in technology.
Ah. I mean, yeah, nah, this, yeah.
We have a couple questions from Electro Live. The first one is, how do we explain that people all over the world have global flood stories containing the core elements?
Well,
So-
first of all, they don't.
Yeah, not everyone does. Secondly,
It's a funny thing that Japan doesn't have flood stories because they
Yeah.
got floods. They're all caused by tsunamis, and so it's no great mystery where the flood
they
came
have
from.
wave stories.
Yeah.
It's a great
They have
wave.
the
Yes.
aware of ocean, but they don't have flood, which is interesting. No, so there's multiple reasons behind it. First is that no, there's no unified flood theorem, story, creation, origin, myth that defines all people across the world.
That and the different flood stories that they do have are violently different.
Isn't there one with beer? Isn't there one where it was flooded with beer?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of them, the flood of a beer.
Where can I go for that?
Right.
Yeah.
Or-
And then there's the Egyptian one's blood.
Yeah.
One
There
of
was
them.
one
Yeah,
of flood. There was one where the only survivors.
Multiple flood stories.
There was one where the only survivors were a man and woman who hid in a seashell.
Yes.
And the only reason the animals survived is because the animals all turned into fish.
And then
That's a good idea, though.
Weird how
That's a good idea.
That's so strange.
Hey, honey, I got an idea. Let's turn into fish.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, Aron.
I love the Polynesian story.
You know, by the law,
always fun.
we are still fish. So
Right. So the only reason why that concept that everyone has a flood story exists is because people talk. That is literally one of the best examples and best ways I can say. What did you do before radio, before music, before all of these things? You had storytellers, right? Storytelling is one of the biggest things. One storyteller will travel far enough on the Silk Road. We're just going to use the Silk Road as an example. That's pretty far back. I'm not going to say it's the farthest they can go, but like Silk Road, they're traveling place to place to place. They hear stories from the locals, their own myths, right? Because kids like telling stories. Kids don't shut up. Everything that they learn from their elders is going to be told to that storyteller. So the storyteller will sit there and just talk with the kids. And then he'll tell a story and the kids will have a story. And that story, those kids will then tell to their parents, and then that will happen and so on and so forth within that culture. Now, the storyteller, though, now has a whole new set of stories, as well as the ones that he brought to that culture. And then he'll go on meander and meet with another one. And I'm not just saying like one person did this. I'm saying like thousands of people. The bard is an entire ass class in D&D because entertainment is one of the founding origins of culture. What you find entertaining, you remember better. These things are these are teaching methods that you use within cultures. And because those are teaching methods, where better to learn things to do, things not to do, things to be wary of. For instance, I don't know if you guys noticed this. Up until 2020, I had absolutely never come across quicksand. And yet, as a child, I was warned via cartoons and all sorts of random shit that quicksand was going to be a very dangerous thing in my life. And I was
everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And
I had the same thing.
Until I got to
I grew up in the Mississippi, so we had real quicksand right here.
I did finally find it, and I did get into it, and it wasn't that quick. And luckily, I found the bottom. It wasn't that deep. But that was the first time I've ever been.
That's a misconception about quicksand too. It doesn't suck you in down to your, and you drown in it. You just get stuck, and you're stuck, and you die from exposure and starvation.
Is some that the air pockets, as they escape, do continue to push you down and pull you and suck you. But the one that I happened to be in had like a stump or a rock at the base of it, and I was able to just land on it, and I was able to push myself back up and out, and then like polar bear cross like over ice to get to the
other side. Video?
What?
Is there a video?
No, that was when I was in Kisatchie National Park, which is like the middle of nowhere, Louisiana. Kind of similar to the whole Wyoming thing, except instead of like wind and like sand, you still have sand, just like the air sand. You end up with mosquitoes, chiggers, and wild boars.
Yeah, I was on the
much
east
fun.
side of Missouri, is where I grew up. So I grew up with that. There's quicksand, like, was a real thing here.
Oh yeah, no, I was
I like the way she grouped these together. So mosquitoes, that's the thing you swat on your shoulder.
right.
And chiggers, that's the thing you swat on your leg.
Yeah.
And then wild boar, well, I don't know, where do you find that one in
You
your
run
in your
up
shorts?
a tree. I have been treed twice. Which, by the way, when you're carrying that much water, because they drop you off at like 4 a.m. to go hiking around, and, like, map shit out with like a GPS and a shovel and your screen, and you're like, you just randomly hear these snorting noises, and you're like, that's it. I'll just make noise. Like, you start clapping to try and scare it away. No, it's mating season. Don't do that. It's, which, by the way, for hogs is like all the time. There is a because
I'm so lucky.
3 times a year.
I'm so lucky. The most dangerous thing I encountered wandering around the deserts in Africa, I encountered a baby adder at one point, and this adder couldn't have known who I was. I mean, like, you're in no safer hands than with me, I assure you.
Right. No, that makes sense.
So Electra Live had a second question.
Go ahead.
And it's, how do you explain that the core elements of flood stories around the world say that a portion of humanity was housed along with animals in an ark or boat long ago in order to escape a flood?
In a seashell was one of them.
People have to eat.
So what's the only? I mean, the exaggeration. Everybody's going to have a flood story, and some of them get exaggerated. So you have concordant with the one flood story from the flood of Shuruppak and Ziusudra's time that we know that the Noah's Ark story is actually based on. Concordant with that, we have other flood stories in Greece around about the same time where they're talking about similar floods, and they had people surviving by climbing onto hilltops, where the people in Shuruppak didn't have hilltops.
No,
they had a flood depth of 22. What was it? 22 cubits. Or no, it was 15 cubits, which goes to 22 feet, I think is what it was. Mm-hmm. So they didn't have hilltops to run to. Their flood of 15 cubits obscured all of everything, so far as they could see.
As far as the eye could see, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's where they get the idea about the whole world being flooded. But the thing is, everybody that wants to flood this, the obvious exaggeration here is that it flooded the whole world. Everybody's going to tell that story.
Right, because it's their whole world.
Right.
So in one story, it's flooded with beer. In another story, it's flooded with blood. But in most of them, it's flooded with water, just as you would expect.
Well, in 2018, arguably, there was and this is one of those rare times I'm going to be like, well, fucking God bless. This was like the worst thing that could happen. A barrel house fell, which, if you don't know what that is, that's where they store whiskey, right? So there was a barrel house, I believe it was 1809 as the brand of whiskey. Well, they had a barrel house collapse, and the entire river was flooded with alcohol. And there was a vast amount of people taking buckets out of the water, and I'm just like, you realize that's going to be alcohol and fish poop, right?
Yeah.
But like the day it happened, everyone's like, oh, mourn the barrels. Oh, so sad. Quick, run to the river. Sorry, I just had to throw that out.
It.
All right, I have a question.
Right. So it was actually a massive environmental disaster, and the reason why is because alcohol actually does kill the fish. So there was a huge study, and I believe the restoration has only recently been brought to a close, in that, like, they have restored it to its primary pollution rate, which kind of sucks saying it like that, but
thank you, Deep Drinks, for your $5 super chat. Great to see Aron Ra here. Great chat, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to comment. I see Leo Phileas is in the audience too. Yeah, and he comments that he's a paleontologist, and as you know, and he was commenting about how he doesn't believe that there was life on Earth before Theia, which would make sense. And if there was any life on Earth before Theia, there wouldn't have been after Theia,
right?
Like not immediately after,
right?
But it was.
They have brought life to Earth as well.
I just want to say I don't think Leo would want us calling him a paleontologist, though. He studies. He's a autodidact, but he studies mostly like physics and stuff. So, and
Am I confusing
I am not a
Leophilia?
paleontologist. I am not a paleontologist.
you might be
I'm in
confusing
fact
them
an
with
ologist. One who
with,
studies. Just
Am
finish.
I confusing him with someone else? I really thought Leophilius was a paleontologist.
yeah,
well.
no, Leo's not, but
He's-
he is a brilliant young man, though.
Okay.
Sorry, Leo.
So here's a question from Foreign Solace. In an attempt to steelman theists, given the scarcity of gopher wood in present day times, do we know if gopher wood was in proximity and
No.
abundance to construct an ark?
The fuck is gopher wood?
It's gyroscopic.
I just figured y'all would
No,
know.
the gyroscopic gopher. No, that was that. I think that's a play off of a comment that was made earlier, which is the gyroscopic gopher wood.
Yeah,
But-
helps the arc stay balanced.
But yeah, no, actually, based off of the wood necessity for an ark, and the size that it is, yeah, there was not enough forest around to even give that much wood.
I was actually just talking to Digital Hammurabi's Megan Lewis a couple of weeks ago about this, and she was talking about how in the ancient Near East, it was like they would travel and go to this special forest to get the wood because there wasn't a lot of wood within the kingdom of Canaan. So the king would actually take a sojourn with his people to go out and do it. It was like a rite of passage thing to
This is a dachshund corgi mix. They call that breed a dorgy.
It's so cute.
It is adorable.
Oh my gosh.
Look at his eyes, just oh my
His
god!
ears.
He has one eye. He has one eye that has silver ring around it. I don't know.
Oh
if you
my
can-
god.
Yeah,
I thought I was
it's
seeing some polychromatic.
and
Yeah,
that
but
is
because of the-
golden
because of the discolored eye.
Chinese mix.
Yep, and the and he's blonde with the discolored eye. We named him Bowie.
Bowie.
Which
So
reminds me,
sweet.
He's a
Aron,
good boy.
Aron, you're gonna be happy about this. I made a knife, Aron.
Oh wow.
I like it.
Damn, girl, you did it.
That's
You made a
Damascus
Damascus steel knife.
Wow, that is so cool.
You can work Damascus steel.
With the help of quite a few friends. But yes, it's actually, yeah, so I'm gonna name drop Norse Forge and Scuba Steve, who is they're wonderful knife makers. Steve actually does all of his metalwork archaeologically accurate. He is not he doesn't call himself an experimental archaeologist because he didn't go to school for archaeology, he went to school for engineering. But he can re-engineer things of the past using not modern tools. So I give him mad credit all the time because anytime he wants to make something, he does it without any machinery, which is really cool. So that's mad thanks to Steve for my lovely knives. And then I'm working on the leather to make those. But yeah, Aron's always has a Bowie or a large knife on his hip. So
Awesome.
I wanted to.
I want to thank Fern Solace for his $4.99 super chat. He says Aron will soon be able to charge admission at his home since he essentially has a zoo. That is true, and I will pay money to go to that zoo.
Thank you. We also have a couple of bearded dragons nobody ever gets to see. I used to have an emu living in my backyard for a number of years. He was my favorite pet ever. And I had a Malaysian Salvador water monitor until it bent the back door open and the police shot it.
Oh no!
Oh,
What in the world?
water monitors are huge too. Everybody talks about Komodo
They can
dragons,
get,
but
I
water
mean, they can
monitors
get
get
big,
longer.
yeah, my uncle had a monitor, and then he had a monitor,
Mm.
and then the monitor became his best friend and just hung out and around the house. And his favorite place to hide, like they put a little heat lamp under the couch, and he would just like go under the couch and
Oh wow!
and then come back out.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you have people would come over and be like, "Oh my god, you have an alligator!" It's like, no, it's a monitor. It's fine. Look at his fat neck. It's so fat.
Was it a Nile monitor?
I've had a couple of Nile monitors, and I've had 3 or 4 Malaysian monitors, the water monitors. But the thing is I was so irresponsible in my 20s when somebody would give me a lizard like this, and just because they couldn't handle it, and so they're going to just palm it off on somebody who they okay, well, you think you can have at it, but I was young and testosterone poisoned and not completely rational, and so I mean I couldn't handle a thing. I realized I couldn't handle an animal like that today. I don't have the capacity now to keep an animal like that appropriately. Certainly not when I was in my 20s. A lizard like that requires its own room.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it can't be an aluminum door, because that was a mistake that I made. My lizard had its own room, but it had an aluminum door, and it realized that aluminum would bend.
Ooh.
And so I came in to feed it one day, and the door was bent open.
Oh, wow.
Just like it went.
Godzilla style.
Damn.
It's almost like, hold on,
Oh
it's
my
almost
God.
like it's a dinosaur.
So we are at an hour and a half, and I want to thank all of you for coming on, because this was probably one of my most favoritist shows, and you'll just have to excuse my lack of grammar right there, because I just enjoy
You
saying
teach
that.
science, not English.
That's right. I'd like to find out, Natty, what's going on in your world? What can our viewers expect?
I kind of had a creative gap for a while because I was might have been sort of finishing up grad school applications and sent those in. So fingers crossed, I can look forward to a PhD soon. So we're seeing what's happening. Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. Guess what's going to be in soil? Anyway.
No, really?
Yeah. So I've kind of had a creative gap there, but yeah, you can catch me. Hopefully, I will start making TikToks regularly again. So you can catch me as Nattlegnat on TikTok, or as Well and Septic Scientist on TikTok, where I talk about pollution and water quality. Not all water is equal. And occasionally you can, not occasionally, I also co-host another show on Sunday nights, which we might be moving, I'm not entirely sure yet, to a different night, but Sunday nights with Captain Dadpool, which is called Nerds and Heresy. I am also just kind of around, kind of get kidnapped for random shows like Sunny does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you can always just tag me and stuff, and I will try and respond. I love getting tagged in videos on TikTok and then explaining the science behind them. If I get tagged enough in something, I know I have to do something about it. So the unicorn skull notwithstanding, that was one from a year back. I had a memory pop up on my phone, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was a whole year ago. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that's where you can find me. I'll just be around.
Well, I keep meaning to get in touch with you so that I can go up to Asheville, which is not that far from me.
I need to come down to the lake though. Like I haven't done that yet, and I need to. I was at Talks. I was at Lake Toxaway last week. Yeah, I had to go to Lake Toxaway to because they're working on removing a dam down there. So
oh wow, how cool!
I'll tell you about that later, but it's an ongoing project, and I got to go down and take a look at it. And it was very exciting.
That's so cool. Before I get to Aron, I want to thank Deep Drinks for a $5 super chat. One last Deep Drinks question for everyone: what is the most plausibly true religion that you don't believe in?
Taoism.
Buddhism. Oh, Taoism.
Taoism.
We're not too far off with those two.
Yeah. I mean, the whole idea of like mind, body, and spirit being one with the earth. That's a nice one. I like that one.
I like how she dipped into a California accent for that.
Yeah. Well, Aron, you know that like if I'm drinking, the accents come with the ideas. They just kind of know.
And Dan D, thank you for your $10 super chat. Love to all, especially the animal lovers. Whoop whoop. Absolutely.
Like
so
all bugs and lizards. And
So, Aron, what about you? What's coming up with you? You are always busy. I don't know how you do it all, but what do you have going
Tomorrow, I have a debate on whether the Bible is pro-slavery.
Really?
why are we still debating this?
Yeah, I realize I've got like 10 minutes to make an opening argument, but I'm just like, well, duh.
That's perfect.
Oh, it's backwards.
Yes.
Yep. And so, and then beyond that,
the Ken Ham version of it, that's like the Bible doesn't endorse slavery. I have like this little flyer book that I got from Answers in Genesis when I went to talk to them.
1 week from today, I will be in Phoenix for the American Atheist National Convention.
I'm gonna miss you guys. It's so sad.
And then a week or two after that, I've got another debate against T-Jump of all people.
No,
I saw that, and I was trying to figure out
what's the topic.
Yeah, it does religion do more harm than good?
And is he saying that it doesn't?
Oh, see, now here's the thing: is Tom will literally argue anything.
Yeah, that's true.
That's my guess about what's going on here.
He argued super straight at one point. It was yeah.
So yeah, he is a friend of mine. He's on the spectrum like I am, but his spectrum is different in that he just has to win an argument. He doesn't care what side he is, and he loves finding the loopholes and finding his way around. That's just what he does. T-Jump is his own little character there, and I have sat there and watched him agree with me on everything I said, and then just randomly decided that he's like, you know what, I'm gonna fuck with her, and he's like, creation, like science isn't real, and I was like, what? It was just like mid dinner, and I about like spit out, like I don't even remember. I was eating pizza. I just remember I was eating pizza, and he was just like, yeah, science isn't real. And I about like just choked on my pizza. I was just like, where'd the fuck did this come from? And he's just like, you keep saying you're a scientist, but like I'm really having a hard time seeing the facts. And I was like, oh, you're being a dick. I know what you're doing. Don't do it.
So that I think is on the 22nd. I'll be gone for Phoenix thing for like a whole week, and then on April 22nd, I'm doing that debate. And then right after that, I will be in Boston for SatanCon.
Ooh,
what is that?
That's the annual convention for the Satanic Temple.
What?
I was a keynote speaker. I was a keynote speaker for the first SatanCon in Scottsdale, Arizona.
That's cool.
So,
that is so cool.
I need to go to that.
I told you, Aron Ra is so flipping busy. I don't know how in the world he does it all. I just don't.
And then, well, the weekend after that, I think it's the weekend after that, I'll be in, I think, Calgary for ReasonCon.
No, that's funny. Calgary for ReasonCon.
Well, they thought it would be the province that needed the most reason.
Yeah. I almost immigrated there.
Oh my gosh!
But I didn't. So.
And we have spiders coming up too. Aron, don't forget about the spiders sometime soon.
Oh yes, and I'm also working on a collaborative effort with Bray here, who she's going to be helping me with the final episode of the Arachnomorph series. And immediately following that, Nattlegnat is going to be working with me on how to date the Earth with not using radiometric means.
Sure, why not?
Look at this. All you terribly smart people is so cool. And I get to sit here and just listen to you and watch all your stuff. And I love that.
I just like getting the info out there. I don't care who does it, and I don't care how. I want it out there. I hate that we privatize research in this country. It bothers me.
I agree.
It's something that I am. Yeah, it's something that I like. I would lobby against for
knowledge behind a paywall. What the hell, people?
Right?
I know. It's so stupid.
So, unofficially, and I don't know if this will get you guys in trouble on the YouTube. Unofficially,
whatever she says is not necessarily the views of the Skeptic Haven.
I believe they're called VPNs. If you use a VPN to go onto research sites to say that you're from a certain country and you go to that particular country's research gate or JSTOR or something along those lines, there tends to be a lovely entrance that is non-fee related, in which you can find certain papers for no money. That is all I have to say.
VPNs are great. Yeah.
She is British when she's talking about something she should. Thank you, Native Atheist, for your $10.
You gotta get love for shady.
Awesome.
My atheism and my autism tend to like ismist each other. Like they just go back and forth.
And Bree, my wonderful co-host. For those of you that don't know, she is now my co-host all the time.
Yay!
All the time.
All
Yay.
the time.
Every
Yes.
Thursday night I'll be here, guys, unless otherwise noted. And
Isn't
sometimes
that
I'll even be
awesome?
filling in for Sunny too. I'll be filling in to host the show when she has to do work stuff or whatever. So that'll happen
Eventually,
as well.
I'm gonna kidnap her and we're gonna go exploring. So
Yes. I'm so excited. Well, maybe we'll have a video of that. We'll post.
oh gosh, we'd have to have someone come with the crew because I'm so bad at I'll take all the pictures, but I'm so bad at making videos. Like my hands, I have perpetually shaky hands. Couldn't be a surgeon if I wanted to.
I get that. My phone has one of those what do you call it? Stabilizer things, and that.
Oh, that's nice.
Saves
That's
me.
cool.
Yep. So Bree, what do you have going on?
Well, if anybody's paying attention to what's happening in the Hive, I just hit my first 1,000 subscribers on
Congratulations.
Yeah. So my channel is monetized now, so I can have channel members and everything. But Saturday morning, I do live from the Hive. We do debunking. Start with Cryptic Corner, Creation Watch, then do some science or eco news or something like that for fun. This Sunday, we are having the celebration, and all my new bugs should be here by then. So I'll be displaying the bugs and having an open panel on Sunday. The following week after that, I believe I'm supposed to have Pat Lowinger on for. We're gonna explore some bad archaeology together.
Oh, tell Pat I said hi if it comes up. Pat's a good buddy of mine.
Yeah,
exploring bad archaeology sounds like fun.
Oh, I love it though because he does bad archaeology sometimes because he sends me coins.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about doing pre-Columbian contact, like Viking stones and stuff in the Midwest, but I don't know yet.
Oh God, like the thing in the thing in Missouri that's like the thing that's like it's totally some colonial kid was just like I like Vikings. I'm gonna destroy into a rock.
I just
have you
love
guys
you, Natty.
covered the Tucson artifacts?
Out of place artifacts. What is it? Is it a hammer into the Tucson artifacts?
It's a handful of swords with Hebrew script and crude pictures of dinosaurs, but with like forked tongues.
like Ica stone quality forgeries. Then is what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
I still get that from time to time. Occasionally, will be like, "Look at this Ica stone." No, it's like.
If you're not familiar with these, they're hilarious. Somebody made some swords out of lead and then went to an archaeological site where they were already digging and then just put the swords in there and covered them with dirt. And so it's obviously they obviously were not situ, right? But they have Hebrew script on them. And the funny thing is that it was supposed to be convincing people that this apparently was a Mormon thing where the Mormon belief that the Jews came over to North America and inhabited this place in pre-Columbian times where there were still dinosaurs.
Nephites and the Lamanites.
But the funny thing is the Hebrew script was copied verbatim from a learn to read Hebrew textbook.
CJ Run, something like that.
They weren't exactly running a long con, were they?
Oh my gosh.
Oh no. And then make sure you bring up the whole Egyptians were at the Grand Canyon thing. That's always fun.
Oh, but that thing about the lead swords with the script copied out of the learn to read Hebrew books, and it's the sauropods with forked tongues. I was on a live radio talk show with somebody Dutko, some young Earth creationist, and that was when I challenged him to give me his best evidence of young Earth, that was it.
Oh, Daddy, last week, that was literally what my video was about. Last Friday was the Egyptian city under the Grand Canyon.
We need to get Morgan in here. Have you guys had Archeo Wolf in here yet?
I don't know who that is. No,
I don't think I have. Nope.
Next time I'm on, I'm dragging my friend in.
Yes.
He is a debunking archaeologist.
I love that.
He's a working archaeologist in Montana, who I have done a lot of collaboration with, and he's constantly having to debunk these really, really shitty archaeology arguments. Pat knows exactly who I'm talking about, and they have had debates on like the best process to go through certain things when it comes to archaeology. Like it's
very cool.
I will send you his info. He jumps onto Nerds and Heresy every now and then with us too. Like, I mean, he's fun. I love it because I'm like, oh, there's a new article on archaeology. Hold on a second. Morgan, you want to come in here? Next thing he's here. Like, he just pops in. Well, I heard the word.
Real quick, I love this name, Dr. Tapioca Weasel, for their $2 super chat. Yay, I'm a new member on Bree's channel. Hooray. Woohoo. Thank you,
Dr. Tapioca Weasel.
Dr. Tapioca Weasel. I need that like on a plaque or something. That's just so cool.
Great.
So for everyone, I want to thank you for watching the show, for contributing in the live chat, for your super chats, for all of the patrons. We couldn't do this without all of you. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank all our wonderful guests because you guys are just amazing. I mean, this was so much fun. It was just like a cool conversation with good friends, and that's awesome. I want to thank our producers, Wes, Phil, Kat, and the booking team, Wes, Raymond, Ellie, James, and Correa. Remember, we have some other shows on Secular Haven as well: Secular Soapbox, Women Atheist Unload, Global Atheist, and The Bible Says What. Coming up soon, we're going to have a call-in show, and it'll be on Sundays. Whenever we do have it, I will be the first host on that, and we will have a guest coming on, and that's going to be really fun and exciting. And more on that to come. In the meantime, remember, everyone, to always think critically. Good night, everybody.